areas.
Well, one of the things that's going through my mind, Paul, which would be quite interesting to sort of mull over, is does it really make so we know the concepts, we know this concept of the LGR bringing these local areas together. How much does it really matter as to who we're going to, you know, partner with? We know the concept, we're going to partner with other boroughs or district councils. How much to an individual does it really matter who it is? And I mean,
I
it's
think,
going through my mind. It's a question I'm asking myself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I know Dom's going to jump in on this.
yeah,
I think there's two aspects to that. The first is the people, because and it is a huge generalisation, but people who work in local government generally really care about what they do, and they have you don't get into local government for the money per se. You get
yeah,
into local government because you want to make a difference, and you can make a difference to either your community or the community you're working for. Um, so there is a when you get a period of uncertainty, there is a part of everybody who thinks, what does this mean for me, my job, my position? But a large part, there will be the second part of them who are thinking, what does this mean for my service and the communities that service provides for them? So they'll be worried on two fronts. But the other half of it is not all councils operate in the same way and deliver services in the same way. So, for instance, if you take housing, which is a prime example, some will have a large housing stock, and that will be run by the council itself. Quite often now, they won't have any housing stock at all, and that will have been given to a housing association decades ago in many instances now. And so there's those differences. There's also the element of place, and different councils have invested different amounts of resource and have different concepts of how they've gone about creating a sense of place in their communities, and that will make a huge difference, because if your neighbouring council hasn't devoted that resource to creating that sense of place in the same way as your council has, it's going to be quite difficult to meld that into one, and it will take years probably to do so.
so this really does fundamentally come down to like individuals' own roles, their own philosophy of why they do what they do, and then and also there's an element I think of if we think about culture within organisations, which is incredibly deep. You've then potentially got this amalgamation of two, three, four different organisations with different cultures, different sense of place, even just different products and services and the way in which they approach them. For example, the housing stock. So it's there is this an element of, yes, we kind of know from a boilerplate point of view what we're going to do, but we can't translate that into how that's going to land for individual people until we know that minded date and we've got a bit of a better idea as to who we're going to be partnering with.
And I think that's one of the, again, this is a bit of a layer cake. There's so many different layers to it that all add to the complexity of it. And I think that pulls out, one of the questions that we've kind of been debating is, what can you do before you have that clarity, that minded to decision? What do you leave till afterwards? And even in that conversation we've just had, some of the stuff around the conversation around place and people's very different approaches, you probably can't do too much preparation for what that combined service looks like until you know who you're combining with, because you won't know the differences, and whether you're going to be combining in a certain way, a certain shape, what the outcome's going to look like. So that layer pushes that sort of preparation piece back and justifiably says, actually, there is some stuff we can't do until we get to that minded to decision. But the other layer says that actually there's a whole load of stuff which is you both in the human and the structural side, that says we know we're going to have to go through these processes and steps. We know we're going to have to lead our people through change. And actually there's a shed load of preparation we can do to get ready for that. We know that we're going to have to combine even things as simple as digital services. and actually there's a whole load of work that we know we can plan out regardless of who we're combining with, because whoever we combine with, we're going to go, I don't know, from 3 email addresses to 1 email address or whatever it might be. It's kind of that, so again, you have these different layers of complexity that it's not as simple as saying, oh, we wait until then and then we'll start to do work, or we can do all this work before then. There's actually different streams of activity that need to be layered and planned and worked out even before we get to that minded to decision. And I think that's one of the things for me around the change design piece. It's actually thinking about, even if we don't know all of the answer, what are the things we have to put in place, and what are the capabilities we have to put in place, and what are the things we can start now, because there's never enough time in the world to do everything. So there's some stuff you have to do up front to get yourself in the best possible position to be able to successfully deliver these changes.
I mean, I totally agree. The whilst you have this opportunity, of time, and you don't have all of the answers, there are still conversations that can be had. There's still dialogue. There's still communication there. That can be opened up with people. Because, back to your point, Paul, when you say, that first point where, somebody says there's change coming, and then it goes into a kind of a void of, well, this is what we're going to do, but we don't really know how we're going to do that, and, what that really means for everybody. But that's really the opportunity where, you really need to start to going out and talking to people about the fact that it is complex. We won't have all the answers. We will be designing this, but there will be information that comes up in these key decision points that may or may not influence the design side of things. So yeah, absolutely, it's and not and it's not just the people that are working within these organizations, it's the residents as well. It's the stakeholders, it's the partners, it's the suppliers. All of these, are people and organisations that are impacted by this.